Trump unterzeichnet umstrittenes Haushaltsgesetz, Medicaid-Kürzungen erklärt. Erforschen Sie die Auswirkungen von Trumps Haushaltsgesetz, das Medicaid kürzt und Millionen betrifft.
What happens if it comes to your desk, has the tax cuts, but also cuts to Medicaid? Would you veto that?
No, we're not doing that.
Would you veto that?
I would if they were cutting it, but they're not cutting it. They're looking at fraud, waste, and abuse.
You heard that right. Just 2 months ago, Donald Trump promised he wouldn't cut Medicaid, and even went as far as promising to veto any bill that would do so. Fast forward to Friday, after repeated warnings from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, millions of Americans, and even members of his own party, Trump signed his budget bill into law, kicking 17 million people off their health care and sending an immediate shockwave around the country. We're going to get into it today and more. I'm Hannah Moldaven, Deputy Communications Director for the Democrats and your host for today. It's July 7th, 2025, and this is the Democrats' Daily Blueprint. First, we want to acknowledge the heartbreaking tragedy in Kerrville, Texas over the weekend. At least 82 people, including 28 children, have been taken by dangerous flash floods in the region. DNC Chair Ken Martin and Democrats across the country are praying for the missing Camp Mystic girls, all of those still unaccounted for, and the first responders who are braving the floods to bring them home. We also want to note that critical positions in Central Texas offices of the National Weather Service went unfilled after Donald Trump and Elon Musk laid off nearly 600 staff members. At the time, experts warned of loss of life because of these cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And while Texas continues to face the deadly impacts of flooding, DHS Secretary Noem spent time on Instagram last night posting portraits of herself and asking followers to weigh in on which one was best, labeling herself as Miss Blondie and Iceman. Over the holiday weekend, Donald Trump and the Republican Party sent a message to Americans: if you're not a billionaire, they don't give a damn about you. After passing the Senate early last week, House Republicans passed Trump's billionaire budget, which made its way to Trump's desk for signing in a July 4th spectacle. Trump's bill includes $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts, $3.3 trillion added to the deficit, and the largest cuts to food assistance for families, children, and veterans in American history. Meanwhile, millionaires and billionaires will be rewarded with $1 trillion tax handout. But don't sweat. While you're worrying about affording your student loans or paying off medical debt, at least it's easier for the ultra-wealthy corporations to buy private jets. You heard that right. This bill makes private jets fully tax deductible. We cannot make this stuff up. It's all in the bill. And us, normal people who are trying to make ends meet, are already facing the consequences. A clinic in Curtis, Nebraska has already announced plans to close because of Trump and Republicans' steep Medicaid cuts. Rural clinics and hospitals are already struggling financially, and Trump's bill is only going to make things worse. It's also worth noting that this clinic is in Congressman Don Bacon's district. Only 2 months ago, Congressman Bacon pretended to care about Medicaid. On Thursday, Bacon voted for this bill, and now over 23,000 of his constituents will lose access to their health care. Fellow Republican Congressman Derek Van Orden of Wisconsin took to X to celebrate the Medicaid cuts, even though nearly 33,000 of his constituents will now lose access to their health care. After receiving a barrage of backlash for retweeting a post highlighting the bill's cuts, he quickly took down his comments. If he's so concerned with what people think about him voting to take away health care, maybe he shouldn't have voted for it in the first place. It seems like Republicans couldn't care less about the Americans they're putting at risk, like Congressman Troy Nehls of Texas.
Can I ask you, though, about the CBO score and the idea that 11 million, 12 million Americans may lose health insurance?
I don't have any faith and confidence in the CBO. They're scoring. They're wrong half the damn time. I don't give any. No, so I'm not worried about the CBO.
You're not worried at all that Americans may lose their health care?
Oh, well, just some Americans that aren't Americans, and that is the illegals.
While Congressman Nehls is puffing a celebratory cigar, millions of Americans are wondering how they'll afford health care. It seems that Republicans just can't stop celebrating. But we're not going to let Trump and Republicans get off scot-free. Over the weekend, we took to social media to highlight some of the biggest betrayals Republicans have made to their own constituents. All of these representatives voted for Trump's big, beautiful bill. First, there's Representative Tom Kean Jr. of New Jersey. More than 20,000 of his constituents will now lose access to their health care, and nearly 11,000 households in his district could lose access to SNAP. There's also Representative Young Kim of California. More than 31,000 of her constituents will lose access to their health care, and nearly 15,000 households in her district could now lose access to SNAP. And let's not forget about Representative Bresnahan of Pennsylvania. More than 30,000 of his constituents will now lose access to health care, and nearly 59,000 households in his district could lose access to SNAP. And if that weren't enough, Congressman Bresnahan sold his stock in Centene. Now, Centene is one of the country's largest Medicaid providers. He sold that right before voting to strip healthcare away from 17 million Americans. So to be clear, he's literally making money off of ruining the lives of his own constituents and millions of others around the country. This is also the same man who campaigned on banning members of Congress from stock trading. That's got to be up there in the Congressional Hypocrite Hall of Fame. We will not let Republicans forget that their vote to pass Trump's billionaire budget rips away healthcare and food assistance from their own constituents, which is why we want you to join us in letting Trump and Republicans know that they can't and will not get away with voting for their awful bill. We're launching Organizing Summer nationwide to come to you with trainings, voter registration drives, and community events to help you hold Republicans in your area accountable for these votes. If you're interested in volunteering, visit our website at democrats.org/take action. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of the Daily Blueprint. We'll be with you right here every day at 10 a.m. Eastern on the DNC's YouTube page. Until tomorrow.